So it's nice to actually meet you, Wayne, for the first time, like in person, kind of, sorry, face to face. And I just had a few questions for you. So I appreciate you taking your time to get on the call. My first question for you is when you were researching like this type of business or this type of investment, what actually drew you to Gemio specifically?
Well, let me back up a little bit. So I'm your typical retail trader that trades, tries to do the best I can and end up breaking even is about as good as it goes, right? And instead of, well, which was probably good compared to the 90% that lose money. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah,
so I started looking at, other alternatives. Number one, to get away from having to sit at the computer uh, constantly during trading hours. And
gotcha.
then also to leverage AI and or other services, whatever,
Hmm.
seem to be better to do it than what I can do it for sure.
Gotcha.
Um, and I've tried all kinds of different strategies, and schooling and learning and all this stuff, and none of it is as easy as what they say it is. It's
Never is. Yeah.
You're right. You always depend. You almost always have to stay on top of it because, especially in when there's a lot of volatility and the VIX is
Mhm.
high and in a news-driven market like it is now,
Yeah.
it's horrible to
Yeah.
try and stay on top of it. So I started looking at different alternatives. One of your, similar service. I don't know if I can use names or not.
Should be fine.
NERP was const. Well, they had contacted me, or I clicked on one of their ads or whatever, and
A
then
competitor. Yeah. I've heard of them
yeah.
too.
And I first off, I didn't get sold on it, and then later on, they offered 30 days free, and I thought, well, that's can't lose there. So 30
Mhm.
days free but it's just paper trading.
Gotcha.
Trading. And so I did that. And it was kind of neat how they did it because they had the account was there that you're copying the trades from, and of course it's like really big account,
Mm.
and then they give you $100,000 of paper trading to work with, and well, I was about 15 days into that, and they were underwater, so I thought, well,
Mm.
I don't know, they got 15 days to dig themselves out, and in the meantime, I seen one of your ads, and what particularly caught my eye was, you know, that the accounts monitored and preservation of capital is important.
Hmm.
So that caught my eye. So that's what started my investigation into your service. Uh,
Gotcha.
and in the meantime,
Did it end well with the other thing that you were trying?
yeah, it's kind of funny. The So 30 days, I started this process of signing up with you guys, and then 30 days in, they were still underwater and more
Mm.
underwater.
Oh,
And
that's not
so
good.
I said, well, forget that. Um, you know,
Good thing it was paper trading, man.
yeah, right. And
Huh.
in the meantime, I got started with you guys. Initially we started off a little bit profitable, and so I
Mhm.
think things are going good. And and it's kind of funny that then 15 days that NERP account, I mean, they went from underwater to positive some amount. I don't know. And then all of a sudden the phone starts ringing again. Anyway, I wrote that service off, and then so that's how I got started.
Gotcha. So I'm glad that was paper trading with the other account and you didn't actually have to pay for anything either. So, I mean, normally that would typically be a scenario where you've lost money and time, right? I mean, you lost the time, but you also learned something, I guess. I'm glad it's going well with us so far. Is there any specific goals that you have? I know you trade yourself. You're essentially just trying to become a profitable trader, or are you also trying to have like a sort of passive income or?
Yeah, ideally I'd like to have a passive income. I'm retired. Um, I guess that's what we call it anyway, retired. I'd like to have some income primarily for, you know, flexible income that we can spend things on, or travel or do whatever. Um,
Gotcha.
have some money coming in that's flexible, usable.
So you want to be able to take some profits here and there then from it,
Um,
which isn't a
yeah,
bad idea.
but yeah. Um,
Like some
but,
people do it most frequently. Like the most frequent some clients will take profits would be quarterly.
mm,
And then, but most people do it twice a year or just once a year. And then obviously a lot of people are also just kind of letting it compound and going long term. But like if you if you have other investments or you have no other investments and like you said, you kind of just want some sort of like a flexible income or an extra income, nothing wrong with taking profits once in a while. And in a case like that, I would recommend taking some profits once in a while. Now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, your results might not be as good as the guy who never touched his account for 5 years, but you would have also had a bunch of profits taken out that you've been able to deploy into your life and use for stuff. So literally nothing wrong with doing that.
right. And
Mhm.
so, it depends on how things are going. I've got an account with that's professionally managed by Fidelity, and
Okay.
got some other accounts too. And if those accounts are rolling along fine, and however, but if whichever one is doing better, I'm just going to
Okay.
keep piling money into it and let it compound. So
Gotcha. That's
the
smart.
Gemeos is working good. I'm just going to let her run. For the um, just offset. If we need income from somewhere else, I'll just use some of the other accounts.
Yeah. Smart.
Basically, whatever's working best, I'm going to keep that running.
Gotcha. Now, in terms of results so far, so I know you've been with us since, has it been May or
Yeah,
April?
not too long.
Gotcha. And what are your results so far? I don't need to be specific, like good or bad, essentially.
Um, well, that was some of the questions I wanted to ask you about. I think it so far meets my expectations.
Awesome.
It'd be great if it was, screaming ahead like crazy, but
Well,
been
there is a
trading.
higher risk setting technically that you're not using. You could technically put some money in, but then you're in the high risk, high reward territory, right? It does
Right,
get more high. The more risk you take, the more money you want to make, the more risk you're taking, right? But
right.
I'm glad
Yeah,
it's as expected so far, which is good to hear.
right. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about too, is because in the Forex markets, currency exchange, one of the things that I don't understand is, sensitivity to market unsettledness, or, wars and all this other
Oh yeah,
crap that goes on.
yeah.
I don't understand the sensitivity of that market. And that was one of the questions I had for you. And I was hoping that getting into this with you would help, especially from being the markets being so sensitive to any kind of news or anything that
Yeah.
sends its, stock market just gets spiraled from day to day just on any little news. It's just
True.
crazy. I was hoping there was a little bit more of a filter there.
Yeah, with the Forex currency pairs, I would say especially the like the Forex majors, it's about a half a dozen currencies. They still get affected by the news, but not as significantly as, let's say, news that involves the USA and then the USA stock market. Like that will spiral and get hit harder with volatility than the Forex market will do. On a long-term basis, you'll see more volatility. Like you'll see less volatility with select currency pairs, and that's mostly going to be because they're not all USA pegged or USA based, right? Like I know a large part of the world's economy kind of leans on what's happening with the USA because of how large and how much of a superpower the USA is, but it's not the be all end all, right? Like you have NZD JPY, New Zealand dollar versus Japanese yen, literally has nothing to do with the USA at all, right? So even if things are happening geopolitically with just the USA specifically, you won't really see any added volatility with New Zealand or Japan, like NZD JPY or CAD CHF, which is Canadian dollar versus the Swiss franc. Like those currencies have nothing to do with the US economy, and then vice versa, right? So being in the Forex space, it's not like you have 12 different Forex pairs. It's not like 12 different stocks in the US. Because, like, again, if you have some volatility in the US market, probably all 12 of those stocks are going to see some crazy stuff going on. But if you got 12 currency pairs and let's say five of them have nothing to do with the US market, US market and the US Forex pairs could be going wild, but NZD, JPY, CAD, CHF, they could just be kind of cruising along, maybe even consolidating, doing nothing for that time. That's a benefit. Some people would look at it as a drawdown because you want volatility in trading, but sometimes mild volatility creates more predictability, right? Highly volatile is when it gets to the point where it's dangerous volatility. Normally, you don't want to touch that, right? You want some volatility, but you would want it to be in like a mild temperature amount of volatility. And that's normally going to come no matter what's happening in certain economies, as long as it's not like a worldwide crazy thing. Like I know right now there's conflicts in the Middle East that's slowly attracting the other countries, Russia, China, USA, teetering on a potential for a World War III. You're seeing volatility in most currency pairs, but still some of them are barely like they're not really being affected. So you really do need a huge event or like massive events that kind of tie in multiple economies together for you to start seeing that dangerous level of volatility across the board in the Forex market. And that's why it's such a good place to trade because there is a bit more consistency. And with mild volatility that happens pretty regularly in Forex, it's a little, I won't want to say easier, but I prefer trading Forex than trading stocks. And I've been doing it almost a decade. That should tell the average trader something, right? Like if I
Right.
like to lean on Forex, then I like to lean on stocks. That should,
Right.
but
Yeah,
you're
that's
right to be doing like having money in the Forex space versus US stock market. Like there's nothing wrong with having money in stocks or even trading it. And some people are very successful and very consistent with just trading stocks, right? Like this, a lot of successful stock traders. Then there's the Forex guys. Then there's people that trade crypto. That's the craziest because crypto has the most volatility of any market, right? Like it can go up 50% in a single day. Like if we're just not just Bitcoin or Ethereum, you have all those other altcoins and people trade those. And sometimes they could literally go from $500 to $150 in the same day, like 80% decline. And they can also triple and quadruple overnight. So like
mhm.
that's a level of volatility that if you don't run stop loss per trade, I don't know how you're successful trading crypto. Like these guys that just do large leverage and they don't use stop losses, they probably get liquidated regularly, like to zero, and then they have to add more money and add more money. And this is why
Right.
we like Forex.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Back to your original question, the other thing is I went to, Trustpilot, one of the only resources I guess it's obvious, there's so many scams and all that stuff. I just got to be careful what you get into,
Yeah. Straight to the reviews. Smart.
right. Looked at NERP, then I looked at, you know, Gemeos and, all the reviews were very good and stuff. And some of the, some of the NERP stuff was, several of them had lost all their money on an old strategy, but now they'd updated the strategy and whatever. And it's like, well, losing all your money is still losing all your money. So
Yeah.
it's another red flag. And then when the trust pilot with you guys was basically all positive and people that, had positive things to say about customer service and the interaction and all that. And that means
Yeah. We
it
try
means a
really
lot.
hard in that department.
Yeah, that means a ton. And actually, it's so frustrating to deal with a lot of these companies where you're actually trying to give them money and then they don't return a call or contact you. It's just like ridiculous.
So definitely sounds like you have some experience with the trading though, which obviously I think kind of helps your decision. It also makes you a bit of someone who's a little bit better at doing their due diligence versus like the average person who's never traded Forex or never traded before. If you took you and then that other person that's never experienced what you've experienced with trading and you had them both go do their due diligence, I think it would be a little not easier for you, but I think you kind of are armed with enough knowledge to be like, well, I know how to do my due diligence. I'm going to look at reviews. I'm going to check out the company. It's going to be a little bit easier for you to make a calculated decision versus a person who has no idea about trading at all, right? Like some of the reviews you could read, you might not even know what like what does this review even mean? They said something about trading a lot size, and I don't know if that's good or bad, kind of thing. So I think you have a bit of an advantage knowing a little bit about trading. That kind of helps you. But yeah, for the everyday person, it's kind of hard to do due diligence. You really need to see like sometimes you just need to see with your own eyes or word of mouth or like having someone that's actually experienced using a company or a service or even like broker reviews, like choosing a Forex broker, for example. You're always going to get a mixed bag of reviews online for Forex brokers that have been around long enough. You're going to have competitors leave bad reviews. You're going to have people that are amateur traders that lose money and they want someone to blame. So then they go to Trustpilot and say, "Yeah, I lost my money. This broker stole my money." It's like you hit a stop loss because you're a beginner trader and you lost money. Like it happens
Yep.
a lot. Like I usually tell people, go look at the Bank of America Trustpilot. They have like 1.3 stars out of 5. It's terrible. Bank of
Huh.
America is like the second biggest bank in the States. But think about someone coming from like Australia or the UK or Ireland and they move to the States and they're like, hey, I want to use a bank. I'm going to go online and check out reviews. And they see Bank of America is like 1 point something stars out of 5. They probably like, oh, this bank's a scam because look at all the 1 star reviews. Meanwhile, you and I know living in North America, Bank of America is a very legit company. Why they've been so bashed on their trust pilot, I don't know. I don't know if it's Chase, JP Morgan, or these other competing banks trying to trash them so they get customers because people do that. Okay, companies can do that too. It can be competitors, or it can just be a lot of Karens or a lot of unhappy campers that typically ended up using Bank of America, and it's just the luck of the draw over time for them. I don't know, but it is kind of
Right.
wild. So you really need to be able to do your digging and your due diligence. And I think word of mouth and speaking to real life people, like if I moved to the States and I had no idea about banks, I'd be looking online and then I'd also speak to someone like, hey, have you used this bank before? Like, should I use it? And if they go, oh, yeah, ignore the online reviews. This company's great. I've been with them a decade. Never an issue. It's
Right.
kind of better for me, right? It's like the old school way of like referrals and word of mouth because there never used to be online reviews. But
Right.
nowadays, it's almost all you have to go on because, especially if you're talking to a sales rep, they're going to be biased, right? They're trying to sell you the service. They're going to be biased. Oh, yeah, sign up. It's great. This broker's great. This company's great. To be able to speak to real people, I think is better. So, and then having videos like this where I'm talking to you, a real living client that's actually been using us for a month or so, and for people to be able to check this out and go, hey, I just this guy named Wayne, he's actually a client, and this is what he says about the service. It's super important for companies nowadays to have those types of resources. Otherwise, I don't know how you get by, and I don't know how you build a good brand and reputation if you're doing stuff like some of the other guys, like blowing accounts. I don't know how you even continue after doing that. I don't understand, but I mean, to each their own. This is why we have our hard stops in place, right? So if we ever have a worst case scenario and we hit a hard stop, it's recoverable because the hard stop's not 100% of your money. It's a way smaller portion, right? 30% hard stop. And we do 50 to 100% or so a year on average. So even if we have a year where we hit 30% hard stop, over the next 11, 12 months, you're still going to be profitable because 50% to 100 minus 30, you're still going to be making 20% or more that year, even if it's a bad year, which is how
Mhm.
our system's designed. So even if it's a crap year, you're still going to make money and you'll still also beat the markets by a bit. But when we have a good year, like the last 3 years in a row, we've had literally zero hard stops hit and we just keep cruising along, then obviously, you're beating the markets. And that's when you become attractive to investors. But then, like you said, the risk side and like actually protecting capital preservation. I think to me, that is equally as important as a profit, if not slightly more important. Because no matter how much profit you can make, if the system is eventually going to lose 75 to 100%, the gains, no matter how much gains there was, is never worthwhile.
Mhm.
Because you could triple your money in a year, but then you lose it all in the 13th month. What was the point of the first year, right?
Right.
So that's kind of how we have it set up. And that's why, I'm moving forward. I know we already have 4 years with the algo, but 4 years moving forward with Gemio specifically, that's the motto we want to try to keep. So, so I just have one last question for you. If someone was to ask you specifically, kind of along the lines of what we were just talking about the service itself, based on your experience so far, what would you say to that person if they were considering using our service?
I would I would recommend. I mean, as far as I can tell, you're the best out there, best for me anyway. Um, and
Appreciate that.
yeah, this
I'll take the best.
interaction like this means a ton to me to put a face to the company, and then the customer service and the help with you know stupid little things that you mess up on. I mean, I'm a boomer, do stupid things, on the computer, and then you know, little help here and there, and it's all straightened out. The whole getting things set up was easier than I thought it was going to be
That's good.
with setting it up with the broker, and have to have a Australian broker and all that kind of stuff. But they've been super too, and so
You are a
I,
good worker.
yeah, highly recommended. I think I was a little apprehensive, like I said, to check things out and make sure there was legitimate service and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to blow
Mhm.
my account, and
Yeah.
yeah, so far it's all well. As far as I'm concerned, the best out there.
Awesome. I appreciate that a lot, Wayne. Truly. I mean, that's all the questions I have for you. If you had some more questions for me, though, you're welcome to ask. We can definitely get into that. Either
Okay.
way, I do appreciate the time you've taken today. So if you have some questions for me, we can do those now if you'd like.